Good afternoon and welcome here at the Red Couch, Electronica in Munich. My name is Michael Brunn. I'm the editor-in-chief of E&E magazine. And during the whole trade show, we will have interviews with important people from the electronics industry, talking about topics that are moving the industry. And you can watch us live here at the trade show or via YouTube or our Facebook channel. And right now, I would like to welcome Andy Harding, Senior Manager, Lifestyle Smart Energy Segment Management at Renesas. And we will talk about, I love this title, Beyond the Smart Meter, an explosion of electronics interconnected by a plethora of communication technologies enabling a smarter society. Welcome, Mr. Harding. I guess you have a lot to explain.
It sounds like it. Yeah, thank you very much for the welcome, Michael. It's good to be here.
Let's start a little bit with an easier question. What are, from your point of view, the key requirements for smart meters?
Yeah, it's interesting because, by the way, can I just say Renesas is a leading Japanese semiconductor manufacturer, and we make the building blocks that the smart grid is based on, the components that are at the heart of the smart grid and everything connected to it. And it's an interesting question, you know, looking at the smart meter. It's just part of the smart grid. Some would say it's the gateway to everything else. And I think the requirements for it are very simple. The first one is price, because when you look at the market in countries like France and Italy and Spain, you have some very big utility companies with many, many customers. I think the biggest utility has about 35 million customers, and if they cannot source meters that are as low a cost as possible, it's a big cost for them. You know, if you have 35 million customers and you add a dollar to the cost of a meter, you're talking $35 million additional investment. And
I'm pretty sure we're not talking about $1 for a meter.
Absolutely. No, I'm saying if you add $1 to the cost of the meter, and you know, it's not only the cost of the meter, but it's the lifetime the meter can be installed for. So reliability and lifetime is another big issue. The utility companies are used to having meters in the field for 20 years. That presents some challenges when you come to electronic meters, and that's another factor in the whole kind of cost scenario. There's some very simple things that also need to be met. Meters need to comply with certain standards. When they're smart meters, they need to comply with radio standards or power line communication standards. They need to be Senelec compliant, they need to be CE marked, they need to meet the MID directive. But all those things, I think, are taken as granted. The key issue is very often what's the system cost, and this is a big driver for them.
Okay. So regarding these requirements, which technologies and standards are important, and how can an engineer choose the right components?
So the standards is an interesting topic, because I think everybody is looking for standards in this market to drive costs down. Because when you have standards, you have larger utilization, you have larger supply channels for the products that are being used, and hopefully you have lower costs as a result of it. But what we find in this market is everybody wants to have their own standard adopted. So actually we have multiple standards in this market, and the biggest utility companies can drive those standards because they have enough volume, whereas maybe the smaller utility companies have to take what's available on the market. And to say there is a standard is not really true. So what we try to do at Renesas is we try to offer products which offer a kind of platform concept which can be reconfigured by software, so that a utility company or a meter maker can have a single platform, but then they can modify it for different markets and different so-called standards. So what we find customers are looking for is a good platform concept which is flexible, high integration, so that they can use as fewer components in a meter as possible, again to reduce cost, and also high reliability. And for us as a major supplier to the automotive industry, we can reuse a lot of our high quality techniques and design rules to make products which can not only work reliably but also provide that long lifetime that customers are looking for.
At the end of the day, smart meters are about business. Everything is about business. What are the business models that will work and drive killer applications?
It's an interesting question because, you know, when we look beyond the smart meter, as we said at the beginning, the topic is kind of beyond the smart meter, a plethora of opportunities. And to be honest, I have to say, beyond the smart meter, I think there are so many ideas about...
Just share a few with us.
Well, so one example is an example where a washing machine can, before it stops working, when there's a fault, it can send a communication through the smart meter to say, hey, there's a fault with this appliance, and soon it's going to stop working. And before the consumer finds they cannot wash their clothes, there's an engineer knocking on the door saying, we need to repair your appliance. And it's the communications through the smart meter that can make this possible. I mean, there's some energy-saving ideas. There is the idea that you may be able to switch off appliances at times of peak demand on the grid. But to be honest, these are all ideas for the future. And I have to say, at the moment, we don't really see the real business drive behind many of these. Where we do see the business drive is in smart metering itself. So you probably know that there is European legislation as part of their 2020 program, where they want to see a 20% reduction in energy consumption, a 20% reduction in greenhouse gas emission, and a 20% increase in renewable energy in the mix by 2020. And actually this program is driving the adoption of smart metering, even if the applications beyond the smart meter are still kind of in their infancy and still being thought through.
You already mentioned it just a little bit, but what, maybe a little bit more in detail, what can Renesas contribute to achieving those targets?
Well, we're trying to participate in these standards bodies that are established. So we're a member of the Prime Alliance, we're a member of the G3 Alliance, we're a member of the Zigbee Alliance, and we're actively developing solutions for many of these major standards which are being used in smart metering. We contribute through participating in working groups to develop the standard, to develop the specification, to work on interoperability between different vendors' solutions. And we also work with customers quite closely. So one example is there's a home appliance maker in Italy called Indesit, where we have worked with them to implement a very unique communications technology, which is quite unique to Indesit. And it's implemented as a peripheral in one of our microcontrollers, and it allows them to put connectivity into their appliance, which costs almost nothing. So actually they can sell appliances to the consumer which are kind of connectivity ready, without the consumer realizing that they're getting this benefit. And it means that they have a complete network of appliances in the field, so that when those business models are ready to drive beyond the meter, they have appliances which can already work with this. So this is it, standardization, contribution, and also working with customers for innovation in technology.
So smart meters will be all around the world in different regions, in different countries.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for the engineers? Are there big differences that have to be considered in the design of smart meters?
Actually, there's huge differences. I mean, even in Europe, you know, as I said, we don't have a single standard, and if you go to different countries, you will find that one country has a particular requirement for the mechanical design of the meter, another country will have a different requirement. In some countries, you're allowed to have an auto cut-off, where you can cut the supply to a consumer. In other countries, this is prohibited by legislation. That's just in Europe. Then if you think around the world, the standards for communication are governed by different frequency regulations. So in the States, you have the FCC regulations. In Europe, you have Senelec. In Japan, you have ARIB, all putting different requirements on the smart meter. Many of the fundamental technologies are the same, but the implementation of them does vary region by region.
So let's take another look beyond the smart meter. What are energy-saving applications in the home?
Good question. And to be honest, I think many of them today are not related to the smart meter. So, for instance, energy-efficient lighting is one obvious one. It can be connected to an energy infrastructure, but at the moment, just by changing a light bulb, you can save energy. In appliances, we have much more efficient inverter designs for motor control. So you can get a AAA rated appliance, which is much more energy efficient than what was available before. In consumer electronics, you can get 0-watt standby products, which again save energy. So there's many things that are available already that you can buy today to help you save energy in the home.
But it's not beyond the smart meter, it's more besides the smart meter.
Besides the smart meter, yeah. I think in the future many of these things will become joined together. I mean, there are people looking today, for instance, there is a concept where when you leave your home, you press a single button and your energy goes into power saving, your home, goes into power saving mode. So for instance, in the winter, the shutters would come down to keep the heat in. The lights would of course all be switched off, all your appliances would be switched off. When you come home, you press the same button and the home powers up again. So it's kind of a whole energy infrastructure. But I mean, this is only really happening in a very narrow selection of homes at the moment.
Okay. So, and what about the grid? Are there any energy saving applications right now in the grid itself?
This is an interesting one because I think so much focus on communications in the smart meter is on the metering function and inside the home. But actually I believe that today utility companies can find many more opportunities and benefits for communications in the grid outside of the home. So for instance, in the substation. So usually the substation where you're converting from your high voltage line to your medium or low voltage line, very often the utility company doesn't know what's happening in the substation. They don't know how loaded that substation is. It could be working at 100% capacity, it could be working at 10% capacity. Also, I mean, if you take the UK as an example, you have 3-phase mains going down the street and you connect each home to one of the phases, but you don't know which phase the home is connected to. So you could have one phase 100% loaded and another phase 25% loaded. And actually by understanding what's happening in the grid, you can bring much more levelling of your energy plan. And so there's a lot of savings to be made for utility companies, which won't benefit the consumer directly, except if the energy provider can save cost, then ultimately it should be a benefit for the consumer as well.
Okay. We're already coming to an end. Last question. What is your personal opinion about the smart grid? How will it develop within the 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think the one thing you can say for sure is that by 2020, there should be 80% of us having smart meters in our home.
Do you believe that?
Yeah, I think this is clearly a target that governments are working towards. To be honest, I think it varies country by country whether this will be achieved. If you take Italy, for example, today, almost every meter is a smart meter. There's other countries in Europe where there is no significant smart metering, but clearly it's a target for the European Union. So I think this will be a fact, and we've seen it. You know, we are shipping products into many of these applications around Europe. I think the real question is what will happen beyond the smart grid and beyond the smart meter, and I think that will be post 2020 before we really see the applications and business models coming through.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the Red Couch talk about Beyond the Smart Meter, an explosion of electronics enabling a smarter society, live here from the Electronica trade show. I would like to thank Andy Harding from Renesas for joining us and giving us some insight on this topic. Thank you very much everybody for watching and listening. We wish you everybody a successful trade show, and if you are interested, you can find this interview and all the other interviews we have here at the Electronica in the Publish Industries YouTube channel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.